Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Dear listener, you're listening to the three wise men of podcasting, the pod people. We're coming to bring the new baby Jesus gifts in this year of 2024. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I come to new baby Jesus bearing a gift of an anime waifu body pillow. Ganbate, Jesus-kun.
I'm Ben Sheets. I have one nice, fresh Newport.
Wow. What a nice thing. I think we could all use that in these trying times. Hello, I'm Cleveland Mosier, and I would like to see the baby. And I'm bringing the baby Jesus in this year, 2024. A right-angle drill adapter, 4-in-1 impact drill bit extension, 360 rotatable quarter, 3/8 and half-inch impact grade socket adapter set, 105-degree angle screwdriver drill bit for household, workplace, industry. That's what I'm bringing him. Because he's a carpenter, you know? Hey. There's all sorts of new tools to get.
Maybe they won't use nails next time.
Yeah, maybe.
He was a carpenter, but now in 2024, he's a Twitch streamer.
Oh, God, I hope not.
Yeah, baby Jesus is a Twitch streamer. We just got back.
Holy, you know?
We just got back from seeing Immaculate.
And it was pretty immaculate.
Hey.
For Christ.
Yeah,
and I am sitting backwards in my chair right now, like a youth pastor. Just so you guys.
He has his hat turned to the side.
Christ.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna learn about the cheat codes of God and all the cool stuff.
God could probably do a no scope.
We're gonna get rizzed up for Christ.
God damn.
It's the son of God.
Yeah, we did predict this movie at the beginning of the year, but we did not have much to go off of at that time. We knew it was a religious horror movie starring Sydney Sweeney as a nun. We've been seeing some trailers for it that have been overlapping with the first Omen trailers, and they at least in the trailers, they looked almost identical.
A lot of overlap.
I honestly, like, even sitting in the seats, didn't know which was which for this movie. I couldn't have told you.
I think all of us went into this with... I mean, I went into it with no real expectations.
I didn't really want to see it. Doing it for the podcast. Doing it for the pod.
Yeah, I mean, like, my expectations were pretty low. When we were predicting, I looked up this director... and all of his other movies had, like, middling reviews, so
he hasn't done very much.
Well,
he did a movie called The Voyeurs, with Sydney Sweeney and Justice Smith.
In, like, 2021. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Other than that,
seen it either.
he did some, like, shorts. I looked up the dude who wrote this, too, and, like, one of his only directing credits was a PUBG short film.
Wow.
So, yeah, but I must say, I thought this movie was kind of awesome. Not for the reasons that I was expecting, though.
I will say, I don't think it was awesome, but it definitely won me over by the end of it.
I had a great time with this movie. It made me smile.
I was going into this movie with low expectations. I had seen Sydney Sweeney in The White Lotus, the HBO show. It's a very good show, but I didn't find Sydney Sweeney to be a very good actress, so I wasn't expecting much. And to be frank, I don't think she's a great actress in this, but I think it works in spite of her.
I thought she did fine. Yeah, I mean, this is the first thing that I've actually seen her in. Like, she's having kind of a big moment right now.
Because of her big moments.
Yeah,
say.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, she's
big.
Oh, shut up! So what were you saying, T?
She's one of these. As far as I know, she got famous for Euphoria.
Yes.
Which I still have not seen. Sam Levinson, I do not care about any of his work. Not for me. But she's been having a big moment right now. She had that rom-com come out recently with Glenn Powell.
Which I guess I apparently read that it's an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing.
Oh, really? Okay, weird. Wouldn't have guessed that. I guess I don't know my Shakespeare well enough. But she hosted SNL a few weeks ago, which I didn't see, but that also...
who watches SNL nowadays?
Anymore, yeah. But it did sort of, like, catapult her into the limelight of the online discourse, because, folks, great news. Wokeness, it's dead. And Sydney Sweeney killed it.
Yeah, with her
huge jugs.
I'm so lost.
I mean, what's there not to understand, Cleveland?
Is this a meme?
Sydney Sweeney's big old
it's not
knocker
no
is,
it's not
cured
it's
woke.
It's not a meme, but she went on SNL and a bunch of the like insane rightoid culture war freaks are like, well, look at this. Wokeness is dead now. A beautiful blonde woman with huge tits is on my television once again. So that means that wokeness is dead.
Okay.
And
you really start seeing like the overlap between right-wing Twitter and horny Twitter,
right,
in this whole thing. It's kind of a circle.
I'm shaking my head. I've got to.
I will say to bring it down to earth a little bit. I do kind of feel bad for Sydney Sweeney, just in kind of the way that people talk about her. Like the clips that I've seen of like interviews with her, like she seems witty, savvy, down to earth, and she's become this sort of like current symbol of culture war that is going to be forgotten about 2 weeks from now, so it doesn't really fucking matter. But
it can't be fun to be swept up.
Anyway, the point is, this is the first time I actually saw her act in something, and I thought she was okay. I thought she was fine. Apparently, she was good. She is one of the... I did see that she is one of the producers of this movie, and not just an exec producer. Like, apparently she was quite involved in the process. So this is something of a passion project for her.
This is kind of a star vehicle for her.
Sure.
When you think about it. Like, it's an elevated horror-like starring her.
It sure has the veneer of an elevated horror film.
Well, it's produced and distributed by...
More on that later.
it's produced and distributed by Neon, right? Which are, they're not quite at the level of A24. They're sort of like the less pretentious A24, I guess, at the moment, but they do a lot of the same kind of elevated horror. And this movie very much presented itself as that for the first half, I would say. And then... we'll get into spoilers later, but it becomes something very, very different in the second half. I'd say it becomes pretty much full camp, which I was very much not expecting.
Because full nunsploitation.
Yeah, you had mentioned when we were leaving the theater, Ben, that this is the most won over by a twist you've been since Malignant.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. I don't think this movie quite reaches the heights of Malignant.
No.
It definitely, thankfully, based on the trailers that we had seen, we were expecting something very Omen-like, a nun becomes, miraculously pregnant with...
Immaculately.
Yeah, I mean, Rosemary's Baby influence is all over.
Right,
like the spawn of the devil is inside of her. That's the presumption. Right. It's like,
they're acting like she's pregnant with the Son of God, but it's probably going to be the he said presumption.
Yeah, fuck you. I'll kill you.
It sounded like presumption to me, and I was like,
yeah, you fucking schmurgle motherfucker.
I don't know what that means, but yeah, run it back, make calls.
What's happening?
I don't know what's happening either. Tease, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say,
schmurgle motherfucker. What are you? All right, sorry. Yeah.
You make up words all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fucking Rinkus
try it. It's fun
over here.
Yeah, the Rinkus Crinkus.
I'm trying to when I do it. Anyway, what are you saying, Tease?
I said presumption.
Anyway, this movie presented itself based on the trailer that a nun gets pregnant with the son of the devil, kind of classic Rosemary's Baby, Omen kind of thing. You know, goes back to what we were saying, that these trailers are playing at the same time as the first Omen, and it's like, oh, they're just showing us the same trailer back to back. Literally, when we went and saw Love Lies Bleeding last week, they did play the trailers back to back, which
they just run together.
I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, by the end, the movie is not that, and I think much to its benefit.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge to talk about too much more without getting into the spoiler. But I do have a couple of things.
Yeah.
I think just talking about the first half, there are some elements that I think are A24 elevated. Like, you know, I don't know how else to say it. I frankly kind of hate that whole deal because like it's so different film to film with A24, and because they're just a.
It's the lingo. It's the lingo though. When you talk, when you say it, people know what you're talking about.
We're
use it as
Zeiton with a Geist.
Use it as shorthand.
It's what we have.
Yeah, use it as shorthand.
So, anyway, there are elements here that I think are elevated. More than anything else is the sound design. I thought this movie had really, really good sound design.
Mm-hmm.
There's just lots of little textural things in this movie. You know, I've just noticing when the camera pans by candles, like the sound for them is like really brought out, and like all the little candly bits. This movie it's very auditorially tactile, and I liked that. I love how the choir stuff is sort of worked into the ambience as well. It sounds great from beginning to end. Like the movie has great audio, and I think it's like maybe worth seeing in a theater for that if that's your jam.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's paired with a great score too.
Yes,
yeah.
I thought the music was really incredible. It's very ethereal, kind of This Mortal Coil or Cocteau Twins-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And very choir heavy, choral, and they do a lot of it diegetically as well because it takes place in a convent, you know, in Italy. I loved all of this stuff, and I think the movie looks very nice as well.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it was shot on film. It looks like it was. They could have added that grain digitally, but it looks like film to me.
Mm-hmm.
The location that they're shooting at is gorgeous. I'm sure it's part set, part actual location. And yeah, I mean, it's very well shot and it's very well lit, and it's got all these kind of hallmarks that you come to expect of these kind of, you know, A24 elevated horror films.
However, I think that the sequencing and the beats are, for the first half, generic as fuck. Like, it is. There are so many sequences that we've seen a million times before, and I love the sound design for all of those sequences, and that's what I really found to like, because I was trying to have a good time. I've got a nice big tall glass of cider while watching the movie, and I'm like, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be at the movie with my homies. And watch the film and enjoy it. You know, I don't like going to a movie to be cynical. I'm trying to not be that guy. And there was enough for me to not be. However, like a few times I felt like I was trying a little hard. Like,
I did not think the first half of this movie was that bad. I thought it was a little dry. I don't think the script is like super tight, and I wasn't particularly impressed with any of the acting, but again, great sound, great music, great location. It looks very good. The vibes were all there. There was an undercurrent of like sinister tension. And while I wasn't blown away by any of it, I was satisfied, I guess, at least. Yeah, like I wasn't having a bad time.
Yeah.
I was waiting to be excited.
Ben, you were shuffling around your seat a lot.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like the cold open, we have Simona Tabasco, who is also in White Lotus.
Oh, okay.
She is trying to escape the convent, and we see things go very wrong for her.
Yeah.
And I thought that sequence was really good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we even get a sort of buried alive sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like, again, like it's well shot. It's well, like it's pretty well acted. And the practicals are quite good, and the setting is quite good. But like, man, shit, I've seen a million times. She's creeping into the nuns' places to get the keys. She's trying to get out the main gate, and she's shuffling through all of the different keys as the nuns are slowly coming up behind her, Jason style. She squeezes through the gap in the fence instead. They break leg. Break looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was
they break her leg
for sure.
Yeah, because like you think they're just gonna grab her leg and pull her back in, but instead they just like rack it against the side
of the gate, and snaps it in half.
And then we cut to black, and then we hear the sound of a matchstick, and she's being buried alive. And the scene is it's well acted, it's well shot. But again, I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, it's not particularly original, but I thought it was. I mean, you don't need originality to be effective, and I thought the scene was effective. I thought particularly what I enjoyed is that the audio of that scene continues over the opening credits, and that the credits are kind of like backlit by her match, right?
Yeah,
and
I thought that was cool.
it's showing and it's giving us the opening credits while we're hearing her like screaming and crying and begging for her life, and I thought it was well done.
I thought it was a fairly strong cold open.
Yeah.
Which kind of made the next half an hour feel kind of boring to me.
A little slow.
Because, it's all Sydney Sweeney kind of being introduced to this new convent. She's coming from America. She's trying to learn Italian, not doing that well.
Takes a long time to learn a language.
Yeah, sure, fair. But it's mostly her getting acclimated, and we get bits and pieces,
I will say, and I don't know if this is a totally fair critique, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I think my biggest problem with Sydney Sweeney in this movie is not necessarily her performance. I think she becomes quite a good scream queen in the second half.
I strongly agree, yeah.
But when she has stuff to do, she's good.
Right. I don't... And again, maybe this is an unfair critique, but I don't really buy her as a nun. I just don't. And it has nothing to do, and it, like, before anybody makes the assumption that's like, oh, she's too hot to be a nun, like, that's not really what I mean. But she has this kind of disinterested zoomer affect that feels
and they
very out of place.
They try to emphasize, like, her meekness.
Right.
And I don't read her performance as particularly meek.
I agree with you.
I do too.
She is definitely kind of disaffected.
Right.
And I think that's one of Sydney Sweeney's, I hate to say it, but weaknesses as an actress. I think she can do the big really well, like the big scenes and the big emotions really well. But the smaller... She
doesn't pull off subtlety very well.
It doesn't work as well.
I kind of agree with you. Now, what I will say, I think I agree that this 30-minute chunk of introduction, vibes aside, which I do think the vibes are immaculate, pun intended. There's not a whole lot going on, and I can kind of see where y'all are coming from with not being super interested by it, but I do think there are some highlights. Some good sort of foreshadowing and lore world building. What I like is, she arrives there and she's introduced to all of the people, and we, get introduced to some characters. There's the sort of the one sister who's very like severe and seems to like not like her, very cold, doesn't like her very much, and she meets like her friend, the one who seems like really out of place there. And she
smoking a cigarette.
Because
they're Italian, so they're always smoking cigarettes in this movie.
And she mentions that, like, the father has a knack for kind of finding broken
birds. Yeah, exactly. Drawing in these women, these young women who are damaged. And the convent itself is I think it's called Our Lady of Sorrow, and it is a convent
a cheerful place to be.
elderly nuns to sort of retire to at the end of their life and be taken care of, through their various illnesses and dementia and so on and so forth. It's basically like a nursing home for elderly nuns in this beautiful convent in the Italian countryside. And, she meets this one of the priests there, the father, who, she learns used to be a scientist before he found his calling to God or whatever. This is one of the parts that I do like, that I do think is cool, is after her first night there, when she takes her vows and is like welcomed into the convent, they have a little celebration and she gets a little tipsy or whatever, and she hears what sounds like someone crying, and she finds her way down to this sort of like sub-chapel.
Well, I will say, right before that, I do want to mention she kind of shares her backstory to the father.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And kind of a bit of, drunken looseness. She tells him that, like, she regularly walked on the ice as a young child, and she fell through the cracks one year.
Yeah, when she was like 12, and her heart stopped for 7 minutes, and, that was sort of her impetus for devoting her life to God. She feels that, like, God brought her back for a reason, so she feels like she is here for a purpose. And, so she follows these sounds down to this sort of, like, sub-chapel and sees, like, a nun, like, prostrated before this altar, and she's got, like, a red veil over her face. And, this kind of freaks her out, and the Mother Superior shows up and explains, and she goes to the altar and shows that they have a relic, a nail that is, supposedly one of the nails.
A 9-inch nail.
A 9-inch nail. One of the nails that was used to nail Christ to the cross. And that they have that here as their relic, and that at Our Lady of Sorrow convent, they believe that they worship the suffering of Jesus. And she says, suffering is love. Suffering is love, and that's what they worship here. And I like that scene, not only just because I think it's the set is very cool, and I like the relic, I like the nail, but I like that it kind of sets up that, like, I'm really interested in these sort of, like, sub-cult sects of Christianity that, like, do almost kind of like pagan style sort of worship. That I all thought was really cool. They mentioned too early on that the convent is built on top of like a catacombs that is the burial site of some saint, Saint Stephen or something like that. I don't know my Catholic saints that well. But so I'm like setting all of this stuff up. Where I was kind of expecting it to go was, I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of those things where they've built their convent on some sort of like the resting place of like some ancient Lovecraftian god or something that they've been worshiping as like Jesus or whatever. Didn't quite go that way. But I do,
or like a demon, really is like the thought is like, oh yeah, in the burial tomb below is some sort of demonic site, and yeah, like it's
something like that.
Again,
my thought though
Rosemary's Baby,
sure.
A cult puts the spawn of the devil in her.
Yeah, I like the nail. To me it was pretty clear. It's like, oh okay, this is a Chekhov's nail. In some capacity.
I mean,
she's gonna stab the demon with it, is what I was thinking. And we saw that plays out. I like that. She's handed the nail to, and she gets kind of ill and passes out and drops it.
Yeah, exactly.
She drops the relic. It's cool. Oh, also, I want to note that I think that the red veils are super cool because they're not just like a red veil over their face covering their faces. They're kind of skin tight.
Yeah,
it's like a mask.
There's like a creepy, like soft impression of a face beneath. With otherwise an all black outfit, and I think it looks pretty fucking cool.
Yeah,
I thought it looked sick.
and these nuns with the red veils are kind of seen multiple times throughout the film, like lurking at the periphery, sort of hinting that something sinister is lying underneath.
Well, and sometimes much less subtly. So
sure,
I'll touch on that later.
I must say, right after this scene, I also really like her dream sequence. Those can be sort of cop-outs in movies, but I enjoyed the way that was shot.
Yeah, man. I like the way that it's shot. I don't know, man. This movie's got a lot of jump scares in it that I felt like that were kind of...
This jump scare was in the trailer.
Yeah,
I
didn't really remember it.
The jump scare aside, I think that
would have been as cool without the jump scare.
Okay. What comes after is cool though. Like they have that strobing red light.
Well, what I think what comes before it is very cool too.
Yeah.
We see her before we realize it's a dream. We see her pass out, whatever, and then it cuts, and we see her go into the confession booth with the cardinal or deacon or whatever, the monsignor of this convent, whatever his position is, and she starts giving her confession, and they do this sort of like a traditional reverse shot, and each time the shot reverses to him, he is farther away from her. Like the confessional booth is expanding, and at a certain point he just sort of gets sucked down into an endless dark hallway. And I thought that was really cool the way they do that. And then she's leaning forward, and we're sort of dollying into the darkness, and we know the music cuts out. We know we're in for a jump scare. Yeah. And if they hadn't put it in the trailer, you would expect typically the jump scare to come from the darkness before her, right? But she sits back, and hands come through the wall behind her and pull her backwards.
Kool-Aid Man style.
Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah. And they do pull her into this, like you hinted at, Ben. This
you didn't know the Kool-Aid Man was full of the blood of Christ, did you?
Oh, I knew. I believed. I had faith. But pulls her back into this room with this strobing red light, and she's on sort of a table, and she's surrounded by these nuns with the red veils, and they have one of them is holding the nail, the Christ nail, and they raise it above and stab her in the stomach with it, and then she wakes up. Symbolism, exactly. She's because it's not long after that it's revealed. She starts getting sick, and then she goes to the doctor, and oh my God, she is miraculously pregnant, though she has never had congress with a man or woman. And so I kind of like that. It's in the dream, there's the she's being penetrated by the nail that pierced Christ as well. It's the insemination.
Yeah, well, it turns out later the line between dream and reality might be a little grayer than it seems.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I thought that's all pretty cool. And then it gets kind of a little dull again for a while. Yeah,
there's a lot of, generic bits that pop up. I will say, with Reflection, I don't hate this sequence, but there's one where she's sitting in a room, it's much later, and there's a painting of, I don't know, Christ or Mary or some shit on the wall, some religious shit on the wall, and it's held by chains holding it up, and one of the chains pops paranormally.
It just breaks.
Other paranormal stuff. Yeah, but it breaks so conveniently. Anyway, it swings to the side, and written on the wall behind that is a biblical quote to Corinthians.
Yeah, well, I think it's loose because in the opening scene we see Simona Tabasco, looking at that and writing that. That was her room.
Yeah, it's her room. Yeah, Sydney Sweeney has taken her room.
I see.
And we saw her the tail end of her writing something in the wall and putting the
which is why it's kind of loose.
Yeah, right.
So she finds it, and it says, it has a biblical quote saying something about, like, you think it's the light, but it's really the dark.
The devil comes in the form of a shining angel or something like that.
Yeah.
But
right. So, which to me reaffirmed, okay, it's gonna go the way that all of these always go.
sure, of course, like it's not subtle with its foreshadowing by any means. Another great example of that is right before the scene where we discover she's pregnant. You know, she's in like the communal like bathhouse with some of the other nuns, and she's talking with her, you know, her friend, and her friend is giving her the backstory, is like, oh yeah, I you know, before this I was with a guy and he hit me, and I had to get away, so I became a nun because it's a job where, as a woman, you don't have to take your clothes off or something, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this leads Sydney Sweeney to be like, oh, wait, you're not here because of a higher calling? Like, you don't even believe in God? And the girl is like, oh, no, of course I believe in God. Life sucks so much, there surely must be a man responsible for it, right?
Hell yeah. Let's go. I like that actress. I like her snark. And again, like the whole like Italian laissez-faire attitude is very fun. It carries on, you know, she continues to see so much that would lead her to believe that nefarious shit is going on, but doesn't really do a lot about it throughout. And that's one problem I have with this bit leading up is, again, it's carried with the weight of an A24 film, but yet it's, you know, stuff that we've seen a million times before. There's so many sequences that are letting our main character know terrible shit is coming, and she's not really doing a lot to protect herself, like, throughout that.
Of course not. She's too meek. She's too meek to take action.
Yeah,
she is
the meek shall inherit.
They keep telling us that the meek shall inherit the earth, and that's her, right? Like,
and
yeah.
So,
that's why she's chosen to bear the new Son of God, is because of her meekness.
Well, that to me is culminated to a punchline when she's walking through the courtyard. At this point, like, she's sort of being treated as this like holy mother,
as a saint,
you know, as a saint. You know, nuns are walking past her and offering blessings. Everyone stands when she enters.
Well,
the room.
they have that absolutely gorgeous scene where they basically dress her up.
Best shot in the movie.
Where they basically dress her up like the Virgin Mary.
The color
and
grading, like, it just looks like a fucking fresco. Mad respect.
We've been,
gorgeous.
You know, dancing around elevated horror. That's the most elevated horror ass elevated horror shot.
It's
like, it's a great shot.
It's beautiful, though.
It's like, that is the flower girl sequence in Midsummer.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
That is, like, to a T.
Yeah, it was great. So she's walking through the courtyard, and the music gets very tense, and she looks up at the window and just sees, like, the fucking Red Skull villains looking down at her through the window, and I laughed. Like, it's just, I thought the designs were so cool. They're so intimidating. But when you just put them out in the daylight, like glaring down at her, like, it's just so evil. It's funny.
Yeah, dude, because at this point the movie is starting to descend.
Yeah, we're tipping. That's fair.
We're getting to the tipping point where it's starting to descend into camp.
Yeah.
Like, we're
starting to get good.
Everything that we're talking about, everything that we've been talking about up to getting up to this is like the traditional elevated horror ass stuff, you know, which I will even continue to describe. It's all quite dry. But this is, you know, we're getting it's starting to tip. It's starting to tip.
It's like well, you can go on about, like, the rest of that scene, because I think that's something we see a lot in the trailer is, like, woman falls or jumps off the balcony.
Yeah.
And,
well, it's
the makeup is real good. Her face all fucked up.
Ooh,
yeah.
There's some really good gore effects in this movie, just in general.
Unexpectedly brutal at times.
Yeah,
it's galling.
And this is the kind of the character that we talked about before, like Sister Isabel or whatever, who is like very cold and severe and sort of off-putting, and she's just continued to get more so throughout the movie. And like a scene or two prior to this, she tries to drown Sydney Sweeney in the bathhouse. And she's saved the last minute, but the whole time she's being like, "You bitch, it should have been me. It should have been me. They have to try again with me."
I might have to go to horny jail for this one, but they knew exactly what they were doing, putting Sydney Sweeney in like a white sheer outfit in a bathtub where you can just see her titties just out of her shirt.
That whole scene, like that scene starts. I'm trying to like be in the movie. I'm in a movie theater, and the person sitting next to me is literally going awooga, and like elbowing me the whole time. Yeah, like real. I can't believe there's the person in the movie theater.
And he's right to do it.
Yeah.
And he's right to do it.
Ben, you're a fucking degenerate.
Ben kept saying awooga, and he was right to do so.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's a nunsploitation movie. They're following in the tradition of exploitation and sexploitation movies. Nun-exploitation movies are historically very sexual, and so it's not...
No, historically, awooga! You're right. It's just a
yeah. I mean, in fairness, she got those things on her.
Yeah, she.
Shut up! Shut up!
I'm right now. I'm the Norman Rockwell painting of the guy standing up. To me, Ben is right to say it. He's right to say it. My man is being unfairly persecuted. I mean, it's got like they know what they're doing, right? Like they know what they're especially, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but especially considering Sydney Sweeney's reputation and what a lot of the populace knows her for. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Yes, and I will not be ashamed for it.
And you shouldn't be. Awooga.
Shaking my head.
Okay, well, I think we've built up to this. There is a twist that we must discuss.
Spoilers! I think we've done a very good job. I say pats on the backs all around. We did a good job discussing the film leading up to this moment that I think we've all been champing at the bit.
Yeah.
To talk about.
If you're even somewhat interested, check out now.
Watch the movie.
Go see the movie and come back.
Yeah.
And what's so fun about this too is it's not even a third act twist. It's like a midpoint twist, where Sydney Sweeney is at this point after all of this, she's finally like, okay, something is like for sure fucked up going on here right now.
Before we jump straight into the twist, there's a couple of moments where it starts escalating. Really nicely.
Yeah, I guess
you're gonna twist edge me. All right.
Yeah.
I guess this does. I think I know what you're gonna talk about. Because this does happen technically before the twist. You're right.
Yeah. So the first one is Sydney Sweeney, her friend. Kind of the outspoken one.
Yeah.
Kind of has enough seeing. They refuse to take Sydney Sweeney to the hospital to check up on her pregnancy.
Yeah.
And they're very strict about, kind of controlling her.
She's mad, she's looking out for her friend.
She gets fed up, and she calls it out. She's
like, yeah, there's something fucked up going on around here. And they drag her away. And later, like, Sydney Sweeney is, out... This is a very sort of, I thought, a nice, like, traditional old gothic horror kind of scene where she's wandering around in a sheer nightdress with a candle. Once again, awooga! At this point, I'm just doing it to make Cleveland uncomfortable, really. But yeah, she's wandering around and she hears like screaming and pleading, and she goes out to a shed, and she looks through the keyhole and sees like the red veiled nuns with her friend like strapped down, and they like cut off her tongue.
It's pretty brutal too.
It is, yeah. And so she is like, okay, yeah, something like I gotta get the fuck out of here. And this next scene I thought was as sort of bland as a lot of the rest of the script is, like, I thought this was some really clever writing and editing, the way that this sequence pans out. Yeah, so it starts with, like, the Mother Superior, like, waking up in the morning because she hears, like, somebody screaming, and she's, like, running through, and she gets into Sydney Sweeney's room, and there is blood everywhere. All over the bed, her dress, between her legs, like, something is wrong, oh my god. And they're like, call the doctor, and it's like, oh, it's Saturday, we won't be able to reach him because he's at the hospital delivering babies or whatever. And Sydney Sweeney's like, please, I don't want to die, please, you gotta take me to a hospital. And so they finally, like, they take her, and they put her in the car, and they're driving her to a hospital. And we cut back to the Mother Superior sort of, like, kneeling at Sydney Sweeney's bed and praying, like, over the bloody blankets. And she's, like, rubbing the bloody blankets on her face.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
And then she, like, bends over and looks under the bed, and there's, like, something bloody, like, wrapped in a pillowcase.
And I agree. I really like how this was set up at the very beginning of the film, because when she joins the nunnery, there's a pretty nice montage of her learning her varied duties around the nunnery. There's even, like, a pretty great, like, little moment in that where they're, like, wiping the ass of one of the old nuns. Like, we don't really see it, but they're laid on the opposite side of the camera, and they're like, and if there's anything weird about the feces, like, talk to the doctor. And the doctor, like, turns around in his chair and, like, waves to them, like,
ciao,
ciao. Oh yeah, very Italian, of course.
This movie is funnier than I was expecting.
Same.
Like, even in the first half, like, this whole montage of her, like, learning her duties at the convent is, like, full of like, good humor. But yeah, like, part of that, like you were saying, is they're showing them how to kill chickens, like how to chop their heads off, and, like, Sydney Sweeney can't do it. She's too meek to kill even a chicken. And she's like, oh no, I can't do it. So we jump forward to the scene we're talking about, where, you know, up to this point, it's been presented to us like something is like legitimately wrong, like something bad is happening.
You know, before they refused to take her to the hospital, but this feels like a desperate enough moment that they disregard that and finally leave in a car to take her to, you know, the local town hospital.
Yeah, and so the Mother Superior finds this bloody lump under the bed wrapped in a pillowcase, and she opens it up, and there's a dead and decapitated chicken inside, and it's like, oh, this is a ruse. Sydney Sweeney,
she found the courage too. It's a good character moment, like, it's clever.
Yep.
Yeah, she found the courage to kill the chicken and get her ass
cover herself in its blood, so they'll think that something is really wrong, and that they'll take her to the hospital so she can escape. But the Mother Superior discovers it and calls them before she can get to the hospital.
And that was the moment I learned this movie wasn't a period piece.
That was the moment?
Jesus Christ.
Like we're like an hour into the movie, and I was like, oh, it's present day. There's a cell phone going off.
You didn't notice when she got out of the airport and was driving to the convent through Rome that there were all modern cars
I'm gonna be wrong. I wasn't
surrounding
paying
her?
attention very much at the very beginning of the movie. I was just caught up thinking about some other
I will
stuff
say I didn't realize it wasn't a period piece until that moment, but that was about 10 minutes
into the movie. Yeah, that's fair. Throughout the film, like, there's nothing at the nunnery that would make you think it's present day.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, when is this set? Like, I wasn't sure. Like the office with the Italian border guard. What the fuck that they called it at the airport? When they're going through their stuff. That whole scene looks like it was from the 60s. The whole film has a veneer of it's very 60s.
Yeah, I'll agree. At that point, I didn't know when it was set either. But then she goes outside and gets in a car, and they're driving through Rome, and they're surrounded by
I think at that point I glanced out.
Fucking Peugeots and Citroens and Maseratis
but I mean,
and shit.
In fairness, you know, Italian is more ageless than, like, America.
That's just how most of Europe is.
So like, it was kind of funny. So yeah, like when he gets the call on his phone, it's like, oh, it's present day.
Europe is much older than America.
Talk about a fantastic scene, though, when they're in the car and he gets the phone call. I think that was probably one of the strongest, in terms of like sequences, like in the movie to me. Like her, she's kind of consistently wailing in this quasi pain.
Yeah, and her sort of like slowly, like, she knows that something is wrong, but she's keeping the ruse going, like, because she doesn't know quite yet if he's on to her. And then he, like, finally gives her, like, one look, and she's just like, and it just cuts to her, like, sprinting, pregnant, of course, like, at this point, 5 months pregnant, sprinting across, like, a cow pasture.
So this is where, like,
covered in blood.
To me, it went from quality, earnestly tense and scary and clever and well written, to hilarious. Like the cut from her, like, the look on her face, looking back at him, being like, "Ah, fuck," to her running in the field, to me was cut for comedy. Like, I was laughing as she's running through the field, and then, like, the way it's edited too, where, like, they're also, like, just suddenly behind her too, is kind of funny also.
I mean, this is all informing the very necessary shift in tone that is required for the twist, which we can now finally.
And you're right to stop and touch on that.
No, you're correct. You're correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because the twist comes next, after they get her back to the convent, and through much exposition and classic villain monologuing, our main priest guy reveals that they found on the nail of that pinned Christ to the cross, after closer analysis, they found blood and tissue and bits of bone.
Because before he was a priest, he was a scientist.
That's right. He was a scientist. He was a geneticist.
Yeah, they got a Jurassic Park Jesus here.
And so, yes, they literally, what they have been trying to do is that for 20 years, they have been trying to create...
Like the mosquito and Amber,
they're trying to create a Jesus clone from the DNA that they're pulling off of this 2,000-year-old nail, and find the right surrogate mother to carry the new Son of God.
So much better than a demon.
It's so funny, dude.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. The part where he's like wheeling her through the chapel, and they get to this one room, and there's just like
in jars.
It's like the scene in Alien Resurrection when Ripley goes into the lab and sees all of the other, like, failed Ripley clones, like, kill me. It's like he's wheeling her through this like, chapel, and he's got these big old, like, Baroque glass jars with, like, these horribly
Christ babies,
distorted, mutated fetuses, and he, like, takes her into the lab.
And then she literally says to them, "So you're trying to play God?" Like, right out of Jurassic Park. Who wrote this movie? Michael Crichton?
Shut up. Oh my God.
You were mentioning it feeling like a period piece before, and what I love about that sequence is, up until that point, like, the convent is pretty dated. Like, they intentionally make it seem like
primitive,
it's very
kind of
antiquated. They don't have any modern technology, and then she's wheeled into the lab, and it has all these pieces of modern scientific equipment.
Yeah,
and it's so jarring that it makes
literally, because there's babies in jars.
Yes, but
it's
it makes
so funny, dude.
It's so much more drastic and
Jurassic,
yeah.
It's honestly, it's truly the fucking perfect twist. Because, like, we were, I had mentioned that I was thinking it's like, oh, this is going to be one of those things where they're worshiping God with Christian, like, iconography, but it's actually, like, an outer God or something, and that has, or a demon or something. Like, we're all, like, at this point, expecting the supernatural up to this point, and I fucking love a mixture of the scientific with the religious. I always will eat that shit up. It's so fucking
it's
fun.
So good here too, because like up until that point, honestly, before the movie started escalating, I thought this movie was kind of mid to okay, and then it starts escalating, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get interested, and then it hits that twist, and it won me over. Probably the most since Malignant.
Yeah.
It's such a dramatic twist.
The shot where he's wheeling her through the room with all of the, Jesus fetuses in the jar.
Jesus
fetus. That was, for me, that was a moment where, in my head, I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, Immaculate. I was unfamiliar with your game.
You had that dog in you.
Yeah, I did not realize that you had that dog in you like that. And, I honestly, during that scene, I just felt myself, start smiling so big, and I don't think I stopped smiling until I got into the car after the movie was over.
I gotta say, I know this is it's an auditory medium, and it's kind of a shame. I wish you guys could, just see how happy Tease is right now. He's just
listen, we'll get into the ending and stuff, and, there are things that I kind of wish the film did instead of what it did. I don't think that it, perfectly executed upon this twist, but it was just so unexpected and so fucking goofy that it just made me giddy, man. Outside of my Dune 2 experiences, I can't remember the last time something in a movie has made me this giddy while watching it. I'm I cannot believe they're going this route.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
It's so stupid. It's so delightfully
It's so fucking stupid, and it's just it sets you up to think that this is a kind of dry, your
A24,
typical A24 elevated horror, and it's no, actually this is camp.
Yeah. Guess what? Yeah, you're in the fucking circus.
This is actually exploitation.
It's crazy. Yeah. No, and I was thinking about Malignant a lot too, and I think that Malignant is different in this way, and I think it's better, but I think it's okay that this movie isn't the same. But I think this comparison
Malignant
is
has the
gonzo
action stuff,
and Malignant
that really
also
elevates it.
Unlike this movie, Malignant starts by setting its tone very well. Malignant has a great opening sequence with the Gotham fucking mega insanatorium, on a hill with the "it's time to cut out the cancer." Malignant lets you know that you're in for a wild ride from the beginning, and I love Malignant for it. I think Malignant is also it uses its crazy budget so well. It's a delight. See our episode on it. It's a charming film. I don't think this movie is anywhere near as great as Malignant. However, I do love that this movie pulls the same kind of bird-brained, fucking wacky-ass shit so late into the film, and it keeps its card close to its chest. And I think there's something.
But that's the thing. It's not that late into the film. It's really not.
It's about halfway in.
It's not. I don't think it's as late into the film as the Gabriel reveal in Malignant is.
Yeah.
It is
Malignant
halfway.
Is third act.
But also it's so crazy up until that.
Sure,
point.
I will agree with you. I'll agree with
you.
you. Malignant sets the tone better, and this film buries the lead better.
Yeah.
But I was kind of. And, in fairness, I was in the unfortunate position of having the Malignant twist spoiled for me before we saw the film. Talked about that on our episode. But this I saw coming, way less. I
had no idea.
I did say earlier how the foreshadowing is kind of ham-fisted in the way that it's letting us know it's there's something going on around here, these people are involved, there is a sinister scheme, they're up to something. But what they're actually up to was so much goofier than what I was expecting that it legitimately blew my head.
Yeah, what's really funny
That's the
is
thing,
I was sitting there in the moment, and the priest said, like, oh, we're using this to fucking clone Christ or whatever. And my gut reaction, my first thought was, are you fucking kidding me? And then I hear Tease to the right of me say, like, are you fucking kidding me? And like, I was like, you know what?
No, I think I said, oh fuck yeah.
Oh fuck yeah, okay. Yeah. And it's just like, and I was like, okay, I choose joy. Tease is right. Like, so and it was. It was very fun.
I've always said like movies need to go ham like this more often. I think what I'll say about the twist is it feels more like a rug pull than it does in Malignant.
Yes.
It's way more unexpected here, and I feel like it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, it makes like the drastic nature of the twist all that much more elevated, which is great. You know, it's that oh fuck moment to the point where we really did not expect it at all. On the other hand, even though it's only halfway in rather than full on third act, like, it does make me kind of wish, like, that tone was in the first half.
Sure.
Because, like, I loved the second half of this movie where I thought the first half was just okay.
And I think to play devil's advocate too, like, I could also see how somebody who's like really vibing with the tone of the first half of the movie might not enjoy the turn to camp in the second half. Like, I really do. I think we all really do. But somebody who is like really digging on the more understated, like, traditional elevated horror shit in the first half might not enjoy the second half.
But I will say, like, I think it nails the schlockiness of the second half way more than it nails the elevated horror.
I agree completely.
Of the first half.
I agree completely.
If you want, like, a slow, religious, you know, elevated horror, watch fucking Saint Maud or something.
Right.
I don't know. Don't watch this movie. Like, you'll get some out of it, but you won't get as much out of it.
Yeah.
And like you brought up earlier, Ben, like, Sydney Sweeney here, like, in the latter half, where it is all screams and camp, I think she does a really good job.
I think she does too.
I think she
totally wins
way
me
better
over.
than she does small.
Yeah.
No, I like that.
I absolutely agree.
And I think she does big. Yeah, like she does big really well. And like I didn't mind the small so much. I didn't get like the Gen Z vibes necessarily off of that, but I definitely do. I see what you mean. Kind of reflecting on that.
It's not egregious, but no. I don't know. I get it's one of those things where it's like I've been hearing so much about this woman for the last year or so. It's like I haven't actually seen her in anything, and it's like I see it and it's like, okay. But no, I do think you know, to agree with what y'all are saying is like she does the big stuff way better.
Yeah, and I will say, like, again, like that scene where she realizes that they're onto her in the car.
Great.
Is like probably the best scene I've seen of her acting in anything I've seen from her so far.
Yeah.
It's legitimately great.
And though I'm you know, generally unimpressed with her more like low key stuff in the first act of this movie, like all kudos to her in the second half of this film, like her performance, and also just like, you know, again, she's a producer of this film, like she's involved in more of the production than just the acting, and yeah, especially for like as young as she is, like I think she, you know, overall, like, praise to her. Praise be. Yeah.
To she.
They punctuate the exposition scene where they're explaining everything by having a crucifix brand and branding her on both of her feet.
That isn't the same scene, isn't it? God, yeah, it all comes so fast.
That's another brutal scene. Like,
yeah.
Again, like, this movie...
Oh, the crucifix?
is punctuated by, like, surprisingly intense gore, where you wouldn't expect it, because a lot of the movies of this ilk kind of pull their punches in that regard.
Yeah, I'm glad this one does that.
Definitely does it.
Well, and we get even more of that leading into the climax, because after that, they jump forward in time again a few months to her third trimester, like very close to...
I want to ask you guys about that, because they this is a very nitpicky thing, but they do, like,
the title
cards
yeah.
of second trimester and third trimester. I don't think they have a first, because the
they
first
don't.
Because they can't.
is just the reveal.
Because they give it away.
Yeah.
Because they go from her finding out that she's pregnant, they jump straight to the second trimester.
I thought those were kind of superfluous. Like,
I agree.
No, I agree.
You kind of
assume
the jumps in time.
I mean, you can literally see her being more and more pregnant each time. It's like, I don't think it's totally necessary.
Just felt a little superfluous.
I agree.
No, I do.
That kind of feels like one of those things that they might not have had in test screenings, and then people being like, I didn't understand the time jumps.
I don't know. It feels like the way like it fills the screen, and like it's like second trimester, and like it's so like there's so much build up and impact to it. Like I think that there's a lot of intent behind it. And I think again like they're going for that A24.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Like that's like the size of the font has nothing to do with when they added it. They could absolutely
you could framed around it like
that could absolutely
the
be
pacing, like when it says like second trimester, like we then get some shots of her belly like right after, and like it's all like framed around that. Like,
and if all of that stuff was there in test screenings and people were like, I don't get it, then why not slap the biggest fucking text you possibly can over the shot so we know that we've got to jump in time. Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's the case.
I
think
it was, like to Cleve's point, like I think like it is kind of a tropey thing of like elevated horror to
Day 7.
Make it feel more quote unquote literary.
Yeah,
have chapters.
Exactly. It's very A24-y.
Well, they did it. I re-listened to our episode on the Blackcoat's daughter not that long ago, and that was something that we were all kind of like, is like, why do they do these like weird title cards that feel kind of out of place? And it's like, I don't know, that those kinds of things are always like, it's hard to determine like what the intent behind it is and whether it's a response to test screenings or not, because like you got to always remember, especially when we're talking about American audiences, especially recently, like people who go to see movies, fucking stupid.
Well, that I won't disagree with you on.
Fucking stupid. And I'm not saying that excludes myself either, but like people, Americans who go to see movies are fucking dumb and need to have things spelled out for them a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of dumb degenerates going to see this movie.
Anyway, the third trimester is where things really fucking come to a head, if you will, because like we basically, I guess, I don't know if it's Christmas, if it's supposed to be Christmas time or what. It would make sense for the birth of the new baby Jesus. But we see, that she's like laying in bed and she's like very pregnant now, and like outside the window, like the nuns are having some sort of, like little ceremony and celebration.
They're singing that song, which,
Well, they don't start singing that, but yes, they do start singing an Italian version of Carol of the Bells, right as Sydney Sweeney picks up a big heavy crucifix off of her bedside table and caves the Mother Superior's skull in with it. This
brutally.
This kicks off one of my favorite parts of the movie, where she decides that enough is enough and she's gonna fucking get out of here or die trying, and she just goes around killing everybody with various like symbols of Christianity. Like she kills the Mother Superior with the big crucifix while an Italian version of Carol of the Bells plays. Crazy.
She does CQC, a Catholic quick combat
with the rosary. Yeah,
she would not like those break-in movies all the time.
She garrots the Monsignor with the rosary, like while he's listening to the choir, and then like as she's trying to like find a way out, we see that she grabs the nail from its reliquary.
Grab that nail.
She grabs the nail and she goes down to the lab and starts, dumping like ethanol all over it.
Yeah, they have like 8 things of ethanol just sitting there for some reason.
Yeah,
For science!
For science!
To preserve the fucked up Christ babies.
There's
the Jesus
And
fetuses.
ethanol?
They're also sitting next to big beakers and flasks of blue and red liquid. Like, it's just like
Science juice,
science juice. It's like, yeah, in a lab you'll find something flammable. Whatever, fuck you. Who cares?
Yeah, who needs formaldehyde when you have ethanol?
I'm pretty sure formaldehyde is pretty flammable as well. So, whatever. She starts dumping shit. The priest comes in and tries to convince her, like, try to talk her out of it. And she runs out and locks the door.
I will say, during the sequence, her water breaks.
And she says, "God damn it!"
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah,
And,
that's before. I think that's right after she kills the Mother Superior.
yeah,
she's on her way.
And
Right,
so she's having contractions.
right through this
And,
whole thing.
Part of the reason the father can get close to her, and to the point where he's a threat, and she runs out of the room.
Right, it's because she starts
has a
having
contraction.
yeah, she starts having a contraction, and he like tries to grab her, and she manages to slip past him and slam the door and lock it, but he can like reach through like the bars, and he's like got her by the hair, and she sees like a little bit of ethanol like peeking out from under the door, so she's able to grab the lighter and light it. And so the whole lab behind her catches on fire, and she just like hears him like screaming, like explosions and stuff, and she's like lying on the ground like having her contractions, but then she hears the sound of a fire extinguisher, and she's like, oh shit. And then it's like we see the fire in the lab like go out, and then like somebody starts like pounding on the door, and he's able to like bust the door off its hinges, and this leads to her fleeing into the catacombs that are mentioned early on in the movie, and there's a little bit of a cat and mouse chase down there.
Yeah, that sequence was pretty well set up. They didn't catacomb it over.
I will say, as she's hiding, we had that classic thing where, she turns and there's a dead body sitting there.
It's her friend who had her tongue cut out. Yeah.
Honestly wish, since it was the catacombs, I wish there were way more bodies.
Yeah.
Skeletons.
It's weird to me that it was just that one.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a bit of a nitpicky thing, but, yeah, you're in the catacombs. Give me skulls. Give me
I was kind
bones.
of I was kind of expecting the film to go even bigger at this point, and I was expecting her to find like some like hidden temple like in the catacombs where she'd be confronted by all the nuns with like the red veils and everything, and it's like, oh yes, this is our obscure and esoteric worship of such and such saint or whatever, but no, they played a little bit safer than that, and like she eventually, I will say I do like the way that the stuff in the catacombs plays with like light and dark
and sound design
and sound again
really good in that sequence.
Where she's like hiding from him with her light turned off, and like we sort of have an idea of where he is based on like the lantern that he's holding. But anyway, she sees like some actual daylight and sees a way out, and she starts like trying to crawl to it. It's a very reminds me of The Descent, like being born, kind of. She's crawling down the birth canal towards the light. She's being reborn. But before she can, she gets dragged back into the catacombs by the priest, who's horribly burned now, and he tries to give her an impromptu C-section. He's got a scalpel, and
I gotta say, the badly burned villain who comes back for one last stand is one of my favorite horror tropes. I gotta say.
Yeah, I never get tired of that, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's constantly appearing, and it's good.
It's always fun. Yeah, and he tries to give her a C-section, and he, I mean, well, he pretty much does. He cuts her pretty good, but she manages to
the Christ nail.
Yeah, she stabs him through the neck with the Christ nail.
She's on the ground. He's over top of her. He's trying to pin her down and do this C-section.
He's saying a Hail Mary while he's doing the C-section.
He's kind of like lying on top of her practically. So his head is over her head, and she hits him in the neck with the Christ nail and pulls it out of his throat, and he just gushes blood all over her, and it's gratuitous. And the scene keeps going, and we get like reaction shots of her. It's like blood is like spraying her face.
He falls onto her.
He falls on top of her, and she's like covered in blood, like trying to get out. And to me, all very Sam Raimi-esque. Like the kind of shot where like there's the person over them and they're being vomited on, or there's blood all over them, and like our protagonist is just getting soaked. It's all already Sam Raimi.
Reminding me a bit of Ready or Not. With how bloody, that finale gets.
Mm-hmm. So he gores all over her, and she pulls herself out from underneath all of that, crawls outside
into the light,
into the light of God, and then we decide maybe we are an A24 movie for just a few more seconds, and we have a drawn out acting highlight oneer sequence where the
final shot of the film,
the most blasphemous.
Is one long long one,
and it's a tight shot of her face,
covered in blood,
and her screaming with the pains of birth as she, assumedly just standing, like just shits this baby out. We don't see it; it's all just her face, but
we do hear it.
And again, huge kudos to the sound design. It sounds so fucked up. Like,
it is not making the sounds that a baby would make.
No, it's a weird rasping animal. Yeah, and I gotta say,
and we see the look on her face too as she sees it, and we know that it's something abominable.
I love the attention to detail in that scene. Not only the sound design, but once she has the birth, she like grabs the umbilical cord and like
tears it with her teeth. Yeah, like an animal.
And it's like actually like hard for her to like tear.
Yeah.
Like she struggles a little bit getting it. And it just textural elements add so much because we don't see the baby in focus, which is good for the movie, I think.
Yeah.
It's a weird choice for such a campy film.
It's ultimately good for the film, I think.
Everything is implication.
With this route that it decides to take. So, like, as the shot continues, we're still just, like, focused on her face, and she walks over and picks up, and it pans down, she picks up a huge rock.
Now, I will say, up until that point, like, when she bites the umbilical cord, I think I even said out loud, I'm like, they better show the fucking baby. I want to see the mutant. Like, again, to make the joke again, I want to see the baby. I want to see it. However, I felt that way right up until she leaves that spot. She starts walking away to pick up a big rock.
And as she's picking up the rock, like, we see the baby on the ground out of focus behind her. You can't get any sort of detail, but
it's a weird bloody lump.
Yeah, it's a weird, like, dark bloody lump. Like, it does seem kind of unnatural.
Yeah. It's very Rosemary's Baby to spoil Rosemary's Baby.
It's true. You never see the baby in
the
that.
horror is like, her face looking at the bassinet and like what is inside. We don't see what is inside, but we know she sees it, and the horror is that.
Yeah.
And I think this movie does something very similar.
It's doing the same thing, basically. Yeah. And the film ends with she raises the rock above her head, and as she brings it down with a wet crunch onto Jesus 2.0, the film cuts to black and the credits roll. And like, For a minute, I heard you say they better show the baby. Like, I was totally there with you. For the route the film takes, I think they actually went about it perfectly.
I love that ending.
I do too. I love that ending as well. There's the part of me that before we got to that final shot, there's the part of me that what I was looking for was her giving birth to a horrifying monster demon baby that she then has to fight.
Yeah.
That's where I was expecting the movie to go, and there's a part of me that's disappointed that they didn't go that far, but for the decision that they made, for the route that they took, I think they handled it excellently.
And two, like, this movie, like, uses its budget, like, pretty damn well, and I don't think there was any room for a mutant baby monster
Probably
fight at
not.
the end. So,
Probably
like,
not.
Again, full credit, like, I agree, and because I was thinking the same thing throughout the film, but in hindsight, now that we've seen the whole movie, looking back at it, I don't think that was ever a reality for this
Probably
film,
not.
and that's okay.
Probably not. I think that was a reality or a possible reality during the scene where they're giving the exposition and we see all the other babies in the jars. Like, I do very much during that scene, I was like, yeah, we're getting a mutant monster, Jesus, baby, let's fucking go. And the movie did at the end, like, I can't say that it toned itself down. It's cool. Not
she
fair.
Crushes it with a big rock. Yeah,
she crushes
That's fine.
She crushes a Jesus clone baby with a big rock at the end. It's like, I don't really know what else I could ask for.
And you know, I feel like you kind of get more out of the implication.
And two, like, I made the joke like, oh, they're suddenly deciding to be an A24 movie again, but I will say also too that kind of brings it all back around because the film has had that weight to it. It's treated itself like that right up until it isn't. So to kind of bring it back around at the end and do like an impressive oneer with some really incredible acting.
Yeah, she's great in that.
That shot is awesome.
Again, like she's
so
great when
good.
doing big.
Yeah,
you know, that is amazing.
You know, a very similar film, or not a similar film, but like an actual A24 movie fairly recently did something I think much better with Pearl. Because Pearl also does that like held oneer at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, kind of.
And, you know, like where we just get like that tight shot of her face with her just acting at the camera. And I prefer Pearl for that, and just in general. But even still, I think it's different enough. I respect it. It's powerful and it's cool. And yeah, I know. Still respect it like a lot. I think it was great.
Do we want to rate this movie?
I think it's time.
Yeah.
Cleve, why don't you add a rating on to what you were saying there? Man, I think that you're kind of.
I usually don't go first, and I was kind of expecting to hear y'all's verse.
Go with your gut.
This whole time, I have been kind of torn between a strong 3.5 and a 4. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with a strong 3.5. I like this movie. I think it's fun. There are, like, while the sequences are, for the most part, like we've said, tropey, we've seen it many times before, they are largely well executed, and that's more important. I do agree, but even still, they're just things I've seen so many times before, that it's not going to elevate it as much to me. But the camp is great, but again, I'm reminded of Malignant, which I much more prefer. Just generally, like, I think the issue is this movie is somewhere between an A24 movie and a fucking bonkers Malignant film. And the issue is I think that there's a lot of A24 movies that carry that elevated horror better, and there's camp that I like more as well. So I think a strong 3.5 is good for me.
Yeah, I think as I was leaving the movie and on the drive home, I was in the same kind of position going back between 3.5 and a 4. I think, though, that I'm going to give it a little bit extra, and I'm going to give it a 4. I agree that the first half is kind of dry. It didn't bother me that much. I was still mostly entertained, but like I get the critique, but the vibes are excellent. And I think that some of the sort of generic tropiness ultimately serves as a sleight of hand to bury the lead for how fucking goofy the second half of the movie is.
It's that rug pull.
It's the rug pull, and if it had done more of a Malignant thing and expressed that kind of tone earlier on, I don't think I would have been as surprised by the twist. So for that, I'm going to give it credit. So it's going to get a 4 out of 5 for me.
You know, it's funny. I think the first half of the movie, up until like the tongue cutting, is probably a 2.5 for me.
Oh wow!
And the second half of the movie, past that, is a 4.5. So I'm gonna split the middle and give this a 3.5. It's got the score, it's got the gore, and it's got more. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Awooga.
Awooga.
Well, okay.
Yeah, no, it's worth checking out. It's a fun movie.
We don't do this very often because I think generally on the podcast we're kind of trying to find like some sort of collective quality or collective truth. You know, like when we rate stuff, usually during our discussion we kind of win each other over one way or the other. You know, over the years, I think that's just sort of been our format. But here, like when I gave it a 3.5. I was really happy to hear Tease, like, hear you give it, like, a 4, because, like, I could see, like, how much joy this movie brought you, and I think that's just as valid as, like, any of my critiques.
It really did. Like I will certainly not deny that this film has problems, and it does, but, I mean, yeah, it just fucking made me smile.
That's
like,
important.
I just, like, it genuinely brought me joy in how fucking stupid and weird it got, and I just respect the shit out of that. But that will give Immaculate an average of 3.7 out of 5. And I say, yeah, hey man, go fucking check it out if you haven't seen it. I don't think it's a theater must see, but it looks and sounds great. So if you got nothing better to do, yeah, go see it in theaters. Why the fuck not, right?
Yeah. Well, because Dune's also showing.
Yeah, but you've had your chance to see.
See both.
Yeah, see both. You've had your chance to see Dune already. We've all already seen it twice.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm thinking about it round 3 at some point.
Dude, me too. Let me know when you go, dude.
We did predict this, but we don't have. We'll cover those next week because we don't have opening weekend results yet. But next week we're doing another new movie. What is it, Ben? What's next week?
Godzilla X Kong.
Oh, it's Godzilla X Kong time. Whoop-de-doo, I guess.
The boys are back in town.
I'm a little hopeful. I'm a little hopeful.
Man.
Because the previous one kind of won me over by how stupid it was by the
honestly,
end. This one, it looks like they're leaning into the stupid. I'm a little.
I feel like
hopeful. Maybe it's Drek. It's probably Drek. But
Godzilla -1 is too fresh for me.
Exactly. I'm feeling a little
no. Don't expect like quality. Expect dumb. Like, expect dumb fun. Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm gonna try to do.
Try to, because, like, I guess, no, if you, like, dude, because I agree, like, Godzilla -1 was one of the best things I saw in 2023, and, like, if I go into this movie expecting that, no, that's stupid. Like, no, I'm not going in
expecting that, but the aura of that is still close to me.
Yeah, they're almost different. Like, I know that they both have Godzilla in them, but they're almost different genres.
It's going to be difficult to separate. Like, but anyway, whatever. Next week is Godzilla X Kong. Big Monkey, Big Lizard.
Yeah.
Part 2. They're back. Now there's a nasty monkey that they have to fight.
He has a gauntlet.
Yeah, why don't we do a sponsor, Clay?
And there's a baby Kong, which I think is pretty dumb. They're like, oh, baby.
Yeah, he looks like shit. The baby Kong looks like shit.
I mean, actually, you know, in fairness, there's baby Kong is much older than.
We'll talk about it next week. What's our sponsor?
Our sponsor this week is very fitting. This week is brought to you by the Lisan Al Gaib.
Oh!
Go see Dune 2 in theaters.
Go see Dune 2.
It's fucking awesome.
Lisan Al Gaib, thank you. Voice from the outer world, the Kwisatz Haderach, Paul Muad'Dib Atreides. Thank you for sponsoring this episode of the podcast.
Hey, Teach, where is I'm trying to remember, where is the what is the Harkonnen homeworld called?
Gaiety Prime.
That's right. Okay. What was the joke? Anyway, yeah, get it, Gaiety Prime. Thank you.
Gaiety Prime.
How's it going?
Well, that'll bring us to the end of this week's episode. If you like the show, don't forget to rate and review us. That helps us get into more people's podcast algorithms.
Teach, where is the Coliseum fight in Dune 2? Where is that location called?
Gaiety Prime.
No, never mind.
What are you looking for?
The Salea Secundus. or whatever.
Seleucus Secundus is the Sardaukar homeworld,
which
we do not see in Dune Part 2. We only see that in Dune Part 1.
Fuck.
You're a fake fan.
I'm a fake
You're
fan.
a fake fan.
Actually, the Sarkundus.
All right, kind of. No, my joke was going to be Secundus nuts. It was going to be the joke, but
you got us there eventually.
I got us there, yeah, but fake fan.
You fucked it up.
Fake fan. I can't remember names.
You could have got him, but I did not got him.
I didn't. All right, wrap it up.
Nobody got me. All right.
Let's get away from this.
Yeah, you can, of course, also support us at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Micah, and Mitchell. Y'all are the best. Thank you.
The best.
You can follow us at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod as well, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings, links to those reviews. For my recommendation this week, I'm going to do a kind of unorthodox one. I'm mostly loath to recommend like true crime stuff. I think that it's got a weird grip on our culture right now and people are too into it. But Werner Herzog, surprise, surprise, as sort of a spiritual sequel to his 2010 documentary Into the Abyss, he did a 8-part series called On Death Row, where he interviews death row inmates, mostly in Texas, but I think he also talks to a couple guys in Florida. And it's got some kind of Dateline-y style framing that I feel like they put on after the fact, but Herzog is just one of the best interviewers there is, and the way that he approaches each of the stories, neither trying to prove or disprove, but just offer multiple perspectives, and first and foremost show that the people who are on death row are people and humans while not doing apologia for the crimes that they've committed. It's heavy, but it's very good. I watched the whole series over the course of 3 days. It's all on Tubi. It's called On Death Row. Would recommend.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. From what I remember, it's very good. At least I've seen Into the Abyss. I feel like I've seen an episode or two. But yeah, talk about heavy shit.
Yes, bleak.
You guys are gonna laugh at me for this one. My recommendation, I wanted to pick something nun-themed, so I'm gonna recommend Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit.
For real?
Yeah, directed by one of the great African-American actor-director, Bill Duke. Bill Duke directed this.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Directed Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit? Okay, yeah. I did not actually know that.
You know, I think it's much better than the first Sister Act movie, personally. And I think it's a fun, enjoyable, comfort movie. It's one of my mom's favorite movies, so I watched it a lot growing up.
Awesome.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it's really enjoyable.
I've been watching Shogun.
Hell yeah.
Lately. I'm drawing my blade.
I've heard it's great. I'm very excited to check it out.
Yeah,
I'm a little
so
behind.
So far, so awesome. I've been having a delightful time with it. The main character, John Blackthorne, makes some absolutely just head-ass decisions throughout the show that I find to be very funny and enjoyable. All the Shogunate Japan stuff is extremely cool, and
keeping the spirit of glorious Nippon alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate that they the main character, even though it's set in Japan, it's kind of we're pushing up on the white saviory stuff. I think its largest saving grace is that Blackthorne is a staunch Protestant Englishman, and from a modern lens, that is about as alien to us as any of the culturally Japanese stuff, and it makes the whole thing it's so fish out of water on both sides that I find it to be really enjoyable.
Would you call it an isekai?
I would. Okay. I really would. But I would recommend it though. I think it's got some really wacky shit so far.
All right.
I'm enjoying it.
I'm looking forward to checking it out.
If you liked Netflix's Marco Polo, you'll fucking love it.
Never watched that.
Me either.
But anyway, thank you for listening. Until next time, Pray for us now and at the hour of our deaths. Amen.